It is now my extreme honor to invite to the podium our guest of honor, and the chief reason we are here this evening at the ICC, a lady who epitomizes intelligence, elegance, and grace. Our former Chancellor of the Durban University of Technology, Ms. Nonkululeko Nyembezi. She promised me a special deal on a Standard Bank home loan if I was kind, so.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Alan. So I was really taken aback by your ChatGPT story. And I suddenly thought, why did I labor over my address? I could have just asked ChatGPT. So I'm going to take that from you for next time. But on a serious note, ladies and gentlemen, Chair of Council, Mr. Majinane, Vice Chancellor, Professor Mthembu, Deans, Senior Faculty Management, and staff present here, it really gives my heart so much joy for you to do this. Initially, I thought, why do we need to do a farewell? It's fine. I'm gone. It's time to hand to the next chancellor. But this is actually something so heartwarming, and to sit there and listen to people pay tribute may sound like a small thing to some, but I don't take it lightly. Now, everybody who came up here said, what an honor. Well, I'm going to have to just go the same path. It has been a singular honor for me to serve as your chancellor. Now, everybody says this, right? It's customary, because it's true. But I thought what I would do this evening is actually tell you why, substantively, for me, this was such a great honor. And what I'm going to tell you will fall into basically three buckets. One being the role of institutes of technology in national development, which is a broad topic, and I'm going to spend some time talking about that. The second one will be about this institution in particular and why I believe that the results that you're achieving are extraordinary, and perhaps you don't sit back sometimes to just consider the ground that you have covered and the role that you play. And then I'm going to speak finally about faculty, about the culture that you're instilling in your student body, and just basically the high quality that every day you try to imbue this institution and make sure that the graduates live with as they embark on the rest of their lives. It's a real problem because I can't actually see this speech because I can't see at night, and I'm thinking, okay, well, this is going to be interesting. So let me start with the very first one, the role of national institutes of technology broadly in national development. Some of you may have seen an article in The Economist about 2 weeks ago, written by Dr. Dan Wang. And yes, that would be really, really helpful. I mean, thank you. Dr. Wang wrote a piece that essentially was contrasting governance in China with that in America. And the central message was, or his provocative title was, China is ruled by engineers and America is ruled by lawyers. Now, there may be many other factors behind China's stratospheric rise from a standing start in the 1980s to where they are today. And just to quote a few of the absolutely incredible achievements of that country, they have, since that time, built a motorway network that is twice that of America. They have built a rail network that is 15 times that of Japan. We all think about Japan as the home of the high-speed train. Well, enter China. They have installed almost as much solar and wind as the rest of the world combined. And the most incredible of all is today China produces a third of all manufactured products on the planet. Now, let's not put them on a pedestal, right? They got lots of issues with the economic model, with freedoms, and with especially personal liberty at that. But the central thesis is nurturing technical skill, making certain that people get the opportunity to apply their knowledge, and above all, to absolutely make sure that they give people the opportunity to accumulate knowledge over a period of time yields real results. And here I'm speaking very, very specifically about the kind of technical knowledge that the DUT serves every day. Now, what was a little bit difficult to think about was Dr. Wang also likened engineering to cooking, which I couldn't quite fathom, but he said a good chef needs good equipment, needs a recipe, but needs intuition, by which he meant an accumulation of hard-earned experience that you then get around to apply to achieve all of these incredible things. So essentially making the argument that process knowledge is what makes the difference. And I have to say, I would agree that that has been, certainly for China, the source of their global competitiveness. Now, let us just see that this is not just a Chinese story. You think about Germany, Germany the same. They are much vaunted and admired dual track of vocational training with artisanal training and apprentices is still there today, let alone the numbers, and we'll get to the numbers in just a second. But what I would like everybody to take away is actually at the bottom of it, technical competence is one of the surest roads to competence, to prosperity for any economy. You just have to look at our country and ask yourself how much of this is bleeding through this economy that is so troubled and has been troubled for a long, long time. So now I promised you some numbers. Let me just tell you a little bit about how much other people spend on education in this area. Germany in 2023 spent 400 billion euro on education, research, and science, equivalent to today something like 8 trillion rand. Same country, same sort of population size as South Africa. Now, the more startling one is the annual operating budget for MIT, an institution very much like this one. It's also an institution of technology. Is around $5 billion. That, to save you the calculation, is about 18 times the revenue of DUT on any one given year. And that's not the end. They also get voluntary contributions, donations from their ex-students, etc., of $600 million a year. Now, that is 11 billion rand just in the voluntary contributions. So these comparisons are sobering, right? So now I'm going to tell you why, with all of that context, why it is absolutely key for me to be part and parcel of what is essentially an institution that does all of this, but does it with so much less resources. And we'll get to the DUT number in just a moment. So what I've learned in my long professional career, especially in heavy industry, is that the most valuable input into any successful economy is not land, it's not even entrepreneurial flair, and it is absolutely not even money. It is a skill of its people, particularly the skill of its technical cohort. This is a secret source. And the absence of such skill is a binding constraint on development. And we live it in this country. We can see it with our own eyes in the water pipes that burst every day, and this and that. I don't have to tell you, you see it all for yourselves. So here's the honor part. DUT exists precisely to address this binding constraint. This is what this Durban University of Technology prides itself on is churning out all of these graduates with absolutely solid competence in various technical spheres. And therefore, you can take it from me that you are at the very center of this country's growth and development ambitions if we don't do more in this part of our educational mix, which is never will get there. Turning now to my second reason, I did say I've got three, which is to talk about DUT itself. I already told you about the numbers where you're getting, at least MIT is getting 7 times your entire state subsidy in voluntary contributions alone. Now consider what DUT does with its comparatively modest endowment. You teach 30,000 students, the majority in science, technical subjects, business, accounting, etc. MIT, with its trillions, teaches fewer than 12,000 students. And you do so with excellent results. And this I didn't get from ChatGPT, I got it from the MIT website. The completion rate of full-time equivalent students from this institution as a percentage of enrollment exceeds 80% every year. And this exceeds the target that is set by the Department of Higher Education and Training. This is remarkable, and it is something that I don't think you sit down enough to consider and just take a bow, because Professor Mthembu, you and your team are doing things that are truly, truly remarkable. Now, it's one thing to reel off numbers, as impressive as numbers can be. You can get a bit startled and a bit dazed by them. But now consider what sits under those numbers. It is the number of lives changed. It is families uplifted. It is communities strengthened, in particular the kind of communities that are served by the Durban University of Technology. What is heartwarming is that it is increasingly being recognized externally. The 2024 Times Higher Education Rankings of Sub-Saharan Education Institution named DUT #1 University of Technology in Sub-Saharan Africa, named you fifth among all South African universities, not of technology, South African universities, #5, and most remarkably, 11th across the continent. As I said right at the start, these are extraordinary achievements. Now, if I were a betting woman, and we have a certain politicians whom I shall not name, who a couple of days ago said they would bet a kidney, but that's not where I'm going with this. If I were to bet 1,000 rand and asked people in the boardrooms of Joburg to say which university in South Africa came 5th, I can tell you now, not even one would name DUT, and this is a problem for you. I think the Vice Chancellor started to talk about some of the things that the university needs to do to just broaden the base and its exposure across South African society. Behind these rankings, though, again, let's take it to what actually sits behind all of this. There are many programs that really sit as the foundation to make all of these things happen. And actually, I'm only just going to highlight 3, otherwise we'll be here all evening and you will not have your mains. The first one I want to mention, I'm not going to talk about them in any detail, but just to mention is the Center for Energy and Environmental Sustainability, which has been developing renewable power solutions that are applicable and appropriate in communities that do not have reliable power. Second, the Entrepreneurial Incubation Program, and this helps students who have ideas about businesses of their own, not only just go out and be job seekers, but become job creators. Third, the Health Sciences Initiative, particularly the partnership in nursing and allied health training, which again addresses another binding constraint in South Africa, particularly in the health sector. All of these examples illustrate a broader truth, and that is DUT is the very opposite of an ivory tower. This is an institution that is deeply connected to the people of KwaZulu-Natal, to the people and challenges of this country, and much more broadly, the continent at large. Of course, challenges do remain. Funding can be painfully tight, as I'm sure all the faculty in the room will attest. Infrastructure under pressure. Partnerships, either with the private sector or international institutions, are essential and extremely hard to come by. Despite these hurdles, it is my firm belief that it remains imperative for the management of this university to make the case relentlessly, consistently shout from the rooftop that what you provide is not just a social good. Of course it is, but it also generates economic returns. Finally, let me turn to my third set of reasons for why it's an honor for me, or has been an honor for me, to serve as your Chancellor. DUT is not only productive, but in my experience during the time I spent with you, I would remark that it is also managed with a high degree of management competence, not just technical competence. It's no small thing. We know the pressures that South African institutions of higher learning are under, be they political, financial, social, etc. You know that story much, much better than I possibly could. And yet, for the most part, DUT has kept its campus calm and functional. Evidence, for example, how it has avoided some of the corruption scandals that a lot of your peer institutions are having to deal with. We're talking about some of them at our table, has navigated multiple periods of turmoil on campus, such as the fees must fall, it wasn't that long ago, has also continued to teach through the COVID period despite the significant difficulties and challenges that that disruption entailed, and finally has remained focused on its mission of producing graduates who are both useful to society but also ready to serve with dignity. So this is not a mere slogan to be impactful, but it's something that you are imbuing your students with every day. As Chancellor, I may have been removed from the coalface, and so what I say to you here is definitely should be taken with a pinch of salt, because I'm not in the engine room, and I shouldn't be, but I doubt very much that any of it would have been possible without council and management working through some complex issues together with absolute robustness and courage, faculty staff going beyond the call of duty to support students who often under incredibly difficult circumstances came through with grit and discipline and absolutely committed to their studies. This culture matters. The world out there is a tough place. And so if your students come out with the kind of skills and attributes that you're trying to inculcate, it stands them in very good stead for success in life, not just at university and to graduate. Ladies and gentlemen, serving as your Chancellor, as I said right at the start many times, has been an honor, but it's also been a privilege. It has been a learning experience, and it has been a source of pride. I've stepped down from the role, as you heard a little bit earlier, last year, so what am I still doing here in 2025? They obviously can't get rid of me. But I stepped down with a sense of gratitude for the colleagues who have supported me through this time. And I must just tell you a little anecdote here. So, you know, the Nyembezis have this Zulu thing, so one of them wrote all these books with words that I even can't pronounce. And so Tanda thinks, Vice Chancellor thinks, well, you can do a graduation in Zulu. I said, okay. Let's see how that would pan out. Write down something for me. So he writes this thing. I literally can't get the words out. I literally just abandoned it. So try it with the next Chancellor. But I really got such significant support right across the people with whom I interacted. But I've also been inspired by students. As somebody said, they came up to me, spoke to me, and it wasn't just the female students, it was across the board. This was actually something that I had never thought about, but to get connected with that sense of hope of people who are just embarking on their life journey makes you just have a lighter step when you leave to go back home to your normal troubles and tribulations. But what I will take away was having a ringside seat to the absolute outpouring of joy and jubilation, loudly, yes, at graduation, but let's not forget that for very many of these families, this was absolutely the first time in their entire family history that they'd had the privilege to have a loved one being kept at graduation. I will continue to watch your progress from afar and with keen interest. I have no doubt that you will go from strength to strength, expanding your partnerships, continuing with very, very useful research, and serving students, communities, and this province, and delivering world-class education in this southeastern tip of Africa. Thank you all very much for coming tonight. I really appreciate it.